If you're brand new to guitar and you want to know what you got to learn first, you've come to the right video. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastery Method. We help thousands of guitar players all around the world, just like you, take your guitar playing to the next level. And today I'm going to show you some beginner's tips that I wish someone told me when I first picked up the guitar. The first tip that I wish someone had told me is how to hold the guitar. That's something that's often overlooked. I mean, I see a lot of day one guitar players all holding the guitar differently. I mean, you know, we have this foreign object that we're introducing into our lives, right? That's supposed to make beautiful music, but we're spending so much time and energy and focus on actually holding it and just awkwardly and leaving almost no energy left over to actually play something. The most important thing when it comes to holding the guitar is finding the balance, okay? Some guitars are gonna have different weight distributions. Some will be more top heavy, some will be more bottom heavy. It's really dependent on the type of guitar you have. But what you should try to do is kind of find, you know, when you have your guitar resting on your knee, right? Most guitars will have a contour like this that's meant for your knee, right? And if you're playing right-handed guitar like I am, I have it on my right knee, right? So like this, I kind of wanna feel out, like I want to like not exactly hold the guitar, but almost like I'm spotting it, right? Like I'm trying to, you know, make sure it doesn't fall any one direction, right? So I got to find out where that balance is. Since every guitar is different, I recommend that you do that with your own guitar and kind of find where the weight distribution kind of wants to go when you leave it, like when you're not actually holding it, right? Now, this particular guitar happens to have a pretty even balance. So it kind of even with no hands, ma. You know, I got it standing pretty stationary here, right? But if your guitar is a little bottom heavy, what you want to do is you want to try and adjust it, you know, in a position to where you have more, like gravity wants to bring more of this side, you know, downward to compensate, right? So you just want to try and find that. Now, if you're playing an acoustic guitar, a lot of times acoustic guitars tend to be top heavy, right? The headstock will want to dive down because you're dealing with a hollowed bodied guitar. In that particular situation, what you should do is have your forearm, like this part of your forearm, just resting on the top there, just to hold it in place, right? The position you want to get to is a place to where you can take your hands off of it and it will stay put. Now see, like that, it just fell over because I have it dipped a little bit too much this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back a little bit. And also, you want to have your guitar resting against your body like this. Like I have it pretty much right up against my chest here. And I want to find, there we go. So there's that balance. Now with no hands, I'm able to actually keep the guitar still. So when I'm actually playing, there's a lot less effort that needs to go into actually holding it. So finding that balance is something really important, and that's what you have to do. And because every guitar is different, you really got to take the time and get to know your guitar's sort of gravitational, you know, balance and find that sweet spot. And if you have to use your arm, like if it's really top heavy, to kind of hold it in place, you know, make sure you do that too. The next tip that I wish someone had told me is how to identify the strings, not just by their note names, but also by their numbers. I would hear the strings referenced as third string, fourth string, sixth string, first string, and be like, well, I don't know what those are, right? I only barely know the actual letters, you know, of the strings that are based on the notes that they're tuned to, right? But technically the strings have two classifications, as numbers or as letters representing the musical notes. We'll start with numbers since it's super easy to pick up. The thinnest string is the first string and the fattest string is the sixth string. So it's counted in that order. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so remember, the thinnest string is the first string, fattest string is the sixth string. If you have to be playing a guitar with more strings, let's say a 7, 8, or 9 string guitar, which good on you if you're a beginner and you're playing that kind of guitar, you're going to follow that same principle, right? The thinnest string is your first string, and then you count all the way up to the fattest string, which whatever number that lands on, that's the number of the string. So it's like the higher the number, the thicker the string is. Next, let's go over the musical notes and what each of these 6 strings are tuned to and how to identify them. There's an acronym that we like to use that starts from the thinnest string over to the fattest string. So it goes in the same order as the actual numbers, right? So starting from the thinnest string, which is E, then it moves up, the next string is B, the next string is G, and then D, A, E. And the acronym we like to use is Easter Bunny gets drunk at Easter. So to remember the notes of the strings, right, you just want to play each string in order, starting from the thinnest string or the first string to the sixth string or the fattest string, right? And just say the acronym out loud. So you have Easter Bunny gets drunk at Easter. E, B, G, D, A, E. So let's have a little pop quiz, okay? Let's say if I were to tell you, where is the fourth string, all right? Then it's like, okay, let's find it. Let's start with the first string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Aha. There's the fourth string. And then if I were to ask you, what note is that fourth string? Then you can think, okay, Easter Bunny gets drunk. Drunk, D. D. So the fourth string is the D string. So that's a way that you can figure that out. Let's pick another one. Let's say if I tell you, oh, find me the A string. You can go A, okay. Easter Bunny gets drunk at A. There we go. And then if I were to ask you, what number string is that? You can go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. So the A string is also the fifth string. You do this a bunch of times and it's just gonna be in a snap. You're gonna know exactly what number and what note that the string is tuned to. The next thing I wish someone had told me is how to tune the strings. Now, I have a pretty embarrassing story about my first day playing guitar. I was maybe 12 years old and I got my first electric guitar. It was a Squier Strat, you know, pretty much everybody's first electric guitar. And the first thing I did, while not knowing how to hold the guitar, right, or not even knowing what the notes or the numbers of the strings were, the first thing I did was I just started playing an open string, and then I just started doing this, and I'm like, huh. When I do that, it goes higher. And I just kept doing it until the string literally broke. And then I was like, I'm not meant to play guitar. This sucks, man. And I threw my guitar down and I didn't touch it for 2 weeks until my mom finally took me back to the music shop she bought the guitar at and was like, I bought this guitar for you. You got to learn how to play it or else I'm returning it. So they replaced the string. Then I brought it back home and subsequently never really put it down since. And now that you know that super embarrassing story and we know each other a little bit better now, maybe you can feel good about yourself knowing that you didn't do that, hopefully, on day one, and your trajectory on your guitar journey is already set up to be way better than it was for me. So what I wish someone had told me that day is that these are the tuning keys, right? And you can use them to tighten or loosen the strings on your guitar. And when you tighten them, pitch goes up. When you loosen them, pitch goes down. And you got to use these tuning keys to maintain the tuning of the strings to those letters, right? Those musical notes that we just went over. E, B, G, D, A, E, all right? So whether you have a tuner pedal or a plug-in tuner or an app on your phone, you also have these clip-on tuners, which is super cool. They didn't have these when I was a teenager, but these are great. You just clip them on to the headstock of your guitar. Doesn't matter what brand, I mean, they pretty much all do the same thing. You just want it to display the note right there on that little screen. And you use that, right? So let's see. My E string appears to be in tune. See that little green notch in the center there? That means it's in tune. Same thing with B. There's G. D is looking good. A is a little flat. We need to bring A up a little bit. So I'm going to tighten the tuning key. There we go. Now A is in good shape. Then lastly, E. E is a little flat too. So we're going to bring E up as well. There we go. We got that green notch. So we're all tuned up and ready to go. Super simple. So the clip-on tuners are a great solution. If you have a tuning app, that's good too, but you got to make sure that you have your smartphone, right, close to you so that it can hear, because it needs to pick up the sound. And if you have a lot of other noise going on too, it can kind of interfere. So generally these work better. Or if you have a pedal that you can plug directly, you know, if you're playing electric guitar or electric acoustic, you plug it directly into a tuner pedal, then you get a pure signal coming straight from your guitar with like no potential outside interference getting in the way of that, right? And then you can use that to tune it. But, you know, that's not as exactly necessary. It's just a bonus if you happen to have that. The next tip that I wish someone had told me on day one is how to hold a pick. So we're gonna move to a much closer angle so you can get a closer look on how to do this. All right, so let's take a closer look at the pick. All right, so here we have the tip and then we have the shoulders of the pick. So the very tip is pointing down towards the ground, right? The tip is what's going to be hitting the string. So this is what we want to do all the picking. So we want the tip to be exposed. So we'll take our first finger here and up to the first knuckle, right, covering the pick. It's going to leave just enough room for the tip to stick out, right? And your first finger is essentially pointing in the same direction as the tip of the pick. Next, our thumb is going to be gripping it on the other side, and it's moving across, like across where the shoulders of the pick are, right? So it's creating this kind of perpendicular thing. You got your first finger pointing in the direction of the pick, your thumb is pointing the other direction, and that's how you hold a pick. Now that we're holding the pick, let's talk about grip. We don't need too much grip, right, in order to hold the pick properly. In fact, you kind of want to have a sweet spot between having enough control to make sure the pick does not escape from your fingers, while at the same time allowing it to be loose enough to kind of go with the flow, you know, if you're doing, let's say, like a strumming pattern. So let's test the grip of our pick. What we're going to do is mute the strings of your guitar so that no noise comes out of the strings, right? We're going to take the pick and then we're going to gently just drop, right, our forearm and let the pick drag across the strings. So we're bringing our forearm up here at the top of the, right here on the low E string, the 6th string, and we're gonna just kind of let it drop, let it drag against the strings, all right? Just kind of do that over and over again. And if you find that your pick tends to, if it kind of gets a little loose, then you want to tighten your grip a bit, not too much, just enough so that it stays steady as you rake through the strings like this. So to add to that downward strumming, we're going to alternate it with upward strums too. So we have where we drop our forearm, then we're going to lift our forearm, right, and drag the pick against the strings that way, and then drop. Lift, drop, lift, drop. You want to lift and drop, not lift and push down, right? Because all you really need is to let gravity do its thing when it comes to strumming downwards and just kind of dropping your forearm like that. It saves you a whole lot of energy too. So we're just going to alternate. Down, up, down, up, down, up, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop. Doing this exercise over and over again will actually give you a great foundation for strumming patterns and stuff and all the rhythmic stuff that you're going to learn down the line. In the meantime though, use this strictly to test the grip of your pick. And if you find that your grip is good, it's unaffected as you're going up and down across all the strings, then you know that your grip is in the right place. For the next tip that I wish someone had told me on day one, let's talk about picking the individual strings. So we did that little exercise, just kind of strumming, you know, raking against the 6 strings with the our strings muted. Now we're just going to be playing open strings, but we're going to play them individually. So what I wish someone had shown me is that when you play the first, let's say like the low E string, starting here, right? When we pick that one note, you can actually come to rest on the string below it, right? So if we're playing on the low E string here, I just do kind of a mini drop, right? I'm not pushing, I'm just dropping it on the string and kind of letting the pick, you know, strike it on its way down, and then coming to rest on the string below it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to try that 4 times on the low E string, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so just repeating that motion will help us find consistency in the way that we pick the string, right? We want them to be consistent, even, right? You don't want to have different degrees of like, you know, soft and then hard and then soft. You know, it's like try and keep it consistent. Just find that motion, right? And by landing on the string below, kind of creates this mental buffer that over time, even if you're not physically landing on the string, it's like mentally you just kind of know to stop around there, you know? Right? So this will prevent you from, when you're picking individual strings, sometimes they'll pick and their hand will just fly out, right? Then you got to bring it back, right? So it's just more, it's too much movement, right? So if we just go down, right? Remember, we're letting gravity do it. So we're just dropping across the string, landing on the next string. And we do the same thing all the way down. So if we're on the A string, we play that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We're coming to rest on the string below it, the D string there. And we do the same thing on the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then moving on, the G string, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the B string, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we reach the high E string, obviously we don't have a string that we can land to, but we can just kind of drop and just let it drop because we don't have to worry about hitting any other strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as an exercise, right, when you pick up the guitar, I want you to play through all of those strings 4 times each. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next tip that I wish someone had told me is how the fingers on your fretting hand are numbered. I would read tabs and diagrams and stuff and have no idea what all these different numbers mean. We already have numbers of the strings. You know, we're talking about numbers on our fingers now. So this is gonna clarify all of that so you know exactly what applies to what. So when it comes to our fretting hands, right, we're only gonna be using these 4 fingers. We often, well, pretty much most often, don't play with our thumb, right? So the thumb doesn't really get a number. It's just these 4 fingers and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that way, if you read a diagram that tells you what number fingers to use to play a chord, for example, right, you'll know exactly what numbers. If you see a 3, it's your 3rd finger, your ring finger, right? If you see a 1, it's your index finger, right? So you'll know exactly what strings to use to play the chords or whatever it is that you're trying to learn how to play. And the next tip that I wish someone had told me when I first started playing guitar is how to grip the neck. I see so many people, just like with holding the guitar, people grip the neck differently, you know, on their first day because it's just this awkward assumption of how you're supposed to do it. Now, I will say that I do play a lot with my thumb kind of over the fretboard like this. However, I advise strongly against it when you're a beginner, okay? You want to learn how to have the most ergonomic access to playing all the frets that you need to and all the notes that you need to, right? If you do this, it's virtually impossible. As you get good and comfortable with like holding the neck of your guitar and all that stuff, and you start to play more, you know, like it's a thing I use with a lot of rhythmic stuff, having the over the thumb thing. But I had to go through the process of getting comfortable with playing guitar first, the proper way, right? Before I can sort of bend the rules a little bit and kind of use my thumb. So while over the thumb playing is actually great, and it's something to use when you're maybe more intermediate level, I strongly advise against getting used to that when you're at a beginner level, because if you're so used to having your thumb over, you know, overhanging like that, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to play scales and like to learn a lot of things that you're going to have to get under your fingers first before you can start, you know, taking liberties with how you play things. So I advise against doing the over the thumb thing if you're a beginner. So the way that you want to hold the neck is you kind of want to think of the relationship between your 4 fingers here, right? Your fretting fingers, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and your thumb, okay? They both essentially wrap around the neck like this. I like to keep the thumb on the back of the neck, right? Kind of at the ready if I need it for some help with like pinching a note or just some support, right? But I like to keep it relatively towards the middle, maybe the upper middle part of the neck, right? Thumb kind of just stays there. So a little exercise just to get accustomed with this is with your hand up here, right, in the open position of your fretboard here. You can have your thumb right here and kind of let your hand hang a little bit. Let your thumb be the only thing that's keeping your hand up. You may notice over time, it'll start to feel heavy. And your hand will want to come down. What that kind of shows you is how heavy your hand really is if you think about it, right? Even with, it's like try as you might, eventually it's going to slide right off, right? But by starting there, okay, that's our starting point. We're hanging. Now we're going to bring our fingers up, right? And just kind of keep them, I'm not fretting any notes or anything. I'm just kind of having them here in this general area. Just keeping it up here, just balancing the gravity out, right? and I'm able to actually hold this position a little bit better. So you can kind of see my thumb sticking out a little bit from the back, but it's not going over like this, right? It's still technically behind the little fret wires that you see on the edge of your fretboard, right? It's up here, right? And then I have my fingers here. So anywhere I'm holding the neck of the guitar, it's more or less gonna be like that. It's not gonna be like this. It's definitely not gonna be like this, right? Where it's just so far down. I mean, you know, I see, you know, sometimes when we play like that, it's almost like we're giving ourselves too much space. So you want your palm, right, of your fretting hand to not be up against the neck. You don't want to be like that, because then your wrist is going to be in like a forced position. It's going to make it very, very uncomfortable to play certain things, and it's also going to build very bad habits. So you want your forearm to just kind of be a little loose. You want your palm to be not attached to the neck, right? But you want it to be close by. You want it to just be kind of hanging there, almost like you can think of your hand like it's a hammock, just hanging down from your neck like that. Or you can think of your palm like a hammock, right? And it's being held up by your thumb on this end and then your fingers on this end, okay? So just kind of hold your hand out like that. And even if you kind of let your arm rest, you'll still feel kind of how heavy it could be. But it's way better than if you just had your thumb, whereas you eventually are just going to fall down, right? So this will allow you to keep your hand up so that you can concentrate on the fact that you're not putting too much focus or energy into gripping the neck, right? Just like you wouldn't be holding the guitar. So that way you're leaving all this extra room and energy and room to focus to actually playing stuff. And speaking of playing stuff, the final tip that I'd wish someone had told me on day one is how to properly fret the notes. So I'm going to be teaching you a very simple introductory scale that's actually a lot of fun to play, and a very simple introductory chord just to kind of show you how that process works. So when it comes to fretting the guitar, okay, let's take, for example, the 3rd fret, okay, of the low E string. What we want to do is with our 3rd finger, right? It's very easy to correspond a finger to a fret in this position of the guitar. We have 1st finger can access the 1st fret, 2nd finger can access the 2nd fret, 3rd finger here can access the 3rd fret. Okay, so let's say we are wanting to play the 3rd fret on the low E string. So I'm using my 3rd finger here. Now take a look. On the 3rd fret, there are 2 fret wires, right, that are kind of bookending the region of this fret. Notice that where I'm fretting, I'm using the very, very tip of my finger, by the way. That's what you want to do, is use the very tip of your finger to push down on the note. I'm using my thumb to give me just a little bit of extra push to fret down on that. But also take a look at the position. Between these 2 frets, I'm leaning more towards, right, or I'm fretting more towards the fret upwards of my finger, right? So it's not here, it's not dead middle, it's like right here. So like kind of in between, so you can see the fret marker on the top right there. Fret marker and the fret wire itself, it's like kind of in between there. For some reason, I don't even know how to explain it. That's just kind of where you get the best tone and also the best intonation on a note. So with my finger, the tip of my finger pushing down on that and knowing how to pick the strings, how to hold the pick and pick the individual strings, I'm just going to play that note once and let it ring. So the note's ringing clearly. It's not muted or buzzy. It's not going like, see, like, you don't want it to do that, or you don't want it to be going out of tune because you're gripping it too hard. Listen, right? The note just went out of tune and went sharp when you grip too hard. So you want to find the perfect kind of amount of push on the fret and then let it be right here. So there's no buzz. And it sustains nicely and the note is in tune. So with that in mind, anywhere that we put our finger to a fret to play a note on the fretboard, you want to follow that rule of thumb, right? You're going to be closer to the fret upwards of your finger, right? Moving this way. And you want to make sure you use the very tip of your finger. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a scale called the E minor pentatonic scale. It's in the open position and it goes like this. So this is a combination of open strings and fretted notes. So the first note is the open low E string, right? And remember how when we pick it, we pick the note, the string, right? And then we come to rest on the string below. Then we reach for the third fret, right? Which we use our third finger to play on the same string, right? Then we have the open A string. Then with our second finger, play the second fret. Then we have the open D string. Then second finger on the second fret on the D string. Then we have the open G string. Then second fret on the, with our second finger on the G string. Then we have open B. Then our third finger on the third fret of B. Then open high E. All right, and then third finger on the third fret of high E. The scale is real simple. It's just 2 notes per string, and this one in particular uses open strings and fretted notes. So it'll kind of get you used to the different, the ways that they sound, right? And also just the relationship between playing open strings and fretted notes. And now let's teach you a really simple chord, okay? So this is what's called the E minor chord, and it goes like this. So this is with all 6 strings, right? So we do that drop, right? That gravity strum, right? Where we start with, it's the open low E string. Then our second finger is on the second fret of the A string. And since we need to fret the second fret on the D string, you use your third finger to do that here, right? Then the rest of the strings are open, G, B, and high E. So you're only fretting 2 strings here, right? And the rest of the strings are open, and then you just strum down on all 6 strings. Now, when it comes to fretting the notes in a chord, sometimes it's not so easy to get both fingers in that same ideal position. Now, I'm able to, with my third finger here, right? I'm kind of more on the upwards trend towards this fret wire. But then with my second finger, it's kind of more towards the middle because that's just the room I need to stack these fingers together and use the very tips, but it still works. So it's not to say that anywhere else from there is wrong, but you're more likely, right, to get the right sustain, the least amount of fret buzz. So it's just ideal if you're able to make it there. But if you can't, that doesn't mean it's impossible to get the right note, right? So it's almost like you're doing the rock horns, right? You know, you don't have to have your first finger and your pinky, right, just like all the way out there like that, but it does kind of look cool. The E minor chord is the most rock and roll chord, who knew? And as a fun little thing you can do when you're practicing both the E minor pentatonic scale and the E minor chord, you can do this. You can play the E minor chord first, then play the E minor pentatonic scale, and then throw in another E minor chord for good measure. Because technically, those are both of the same key, right? E minor, so they play off of each other. So you can just have fun with it, throw the chord in there, throw the notes in the scale in there, throw another chord, just kind of do what you want. I mean, as long as you're having fun with it while you're learning, I mean, otherwise, what's the point? If you're feeling up to it, I have a video where I teach you 6 very basic chords that you can learn pretty much day 1 from picking up guitar. So I'll leave a link in the description to check out that video so you can already start adding more chords to your repertoire. So now that you're equipped with all these day 1 tips, you're already much better off than I was my first day picking up the guitar. You're also set up to start having some powerful practice sessions that will maximize your results as you start learning guitar. And I have something for you that's going to give you all of that. A free practice session cheat sheet. This will show you exactly what you need to practice when you pick up the guitar, and it'll show you how to get the best results in the least amount of time. So be sure to click the link here to grab a copy or check the link in the description box. And that about does it for this video. Be sure to smack the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon so you can stay up to date on all the lessons we got coming at you. I want to congratulate you on your new journey into playing guitar, and thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastery Method, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.